Right now, I am rebuilding the entire front end of my 1973 Volkswagen Super Beetle. I thought, why not make a quick video while I have everything apart and explain how everything comes apart. So I'm going to go over the entire front end, and I'm going to try to make it as short as possible. I probably don't have time to edit this, so it's going to be like a long video, but I'm going to try to make it as information packed as possible. Okay, so here is, start off with the strut. Okay, here's the strut assembly. I have this back on, but the other side's still apart. So let me explain how to get this off. And first, if you're replacing the strut, don't replace the whole strut, because you could replace the shock inside of it, which is significantly cheaper. It's not that hard, and if you want to keep your car original, then you want to try to save as much of the original parts as possible. So to undo this, it's actually really simple. First, you'll disconnect your brake line, right? And you'll want to drain that. And then you have two ball joints to disconnect. You want to disconnect this ball joint and disconnect this ball joint. You'll likely need a ball joint puller, or maybe you could do it with a hammer. Look at other videos to see how to do that. All right. And then it's off right now, but there's the sway bar, which is laying right over there. And that goes right into here. So yeah, that's another piece of the front end. For the strut, you don't need to take off the sway bar, do you? Yeah, I guess you would have to pull off the sway bar likely. So if there's like a bolt on this side, you unbolt that. And then there's two bolts here and two on the other side that take that sway bar off. Okay, now, once you've undone those two ball joints, and you might have to undo the sway bar too, and the brake line, then the last thing you'd want to do is undo these three bolts at the top. And then as you have undoing the last one, you want to hold this, because then it's going to fall or have something underneath it, and then take it off. I'd recommend taking off the whole brake assembly first, because it'll make it lighter. And to do that, here is the assembly laid out in order. Here, so the first thing you're going to remove is you're going to remove this cap, and you're going to do it with like maybe getting a screwdriver, wedging it in there, and lightly tapping it with a hammer until this comes off. Or you can use a chisel or a screwdriver. I usually get it started with a chisel because it's a sharp edge, and then I kind of work it out with a screwdriver. Your next thing is this like bolt or nut, and it has a Allen wrench on the side of it. You undo that and unscrew this. Then there's this washer. You pull this washer out, and that will be on top of this. Well, let's see. The next thing actually would be that bearing right there, and that bearing would be sitting in here, and you'd pull that out. And then you pull this off, and this just slides right off. And back here there's another bearing, and on here over the bearing is a grease seal. You're going to want to buy that grease seal ahead of time, because that needs to be replaced. And that sucks to order it like me after you've taken it off, because I didn't think about that. Okay, so that's how you do that. Next part, this part right here. Let's talk about how to, what to do, how to remove that. Well, it's obvious how to remove that. You undo that ball joint and you undo that screw right there. You might want to keep the orientation of this, because that adjusts the alignment, so you can get it somewhat to what you had it before. So anyways, that pulls off, and this is what it looks like. On mine, this absolutely needed to be replaced. This part, however, didn't, and it was so difficult to get the other part off that I decided not to replace this one. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with this side. Well, it wasn't getting it off so much as putting the new one on. It was difficult. The kit I got, these bushings apparently don't fit, even though they said they did. So these were too high. It was too thick, and I ground this down with my angle grinder to the right height. I was careful about it, so I got them to work. Well, let's explain how to take this old rubber piece off and to put the new one on. like how I did it. I don't know how other people do it. So originally there was this in there, and this was inside of it, and this is kind of hanging out inside this metal piece. This metal piece was much bigger, and between it this rubber was like wearing out. So what I did was I got a saw blade. Where did my saw blade go? Or I got my Sawzall, and I stuck it in between this metal thing and this down in the rubber. Like I poked it down in the rubber, and I turned my Sawzall on and just started cutting around it. And if you don't have a Sawzall, you can just use a Sawzall blade or a hacksaw blade. Hacksaw blade's probably better if you get a really small one, and you could do it by hand. It'll just take a lot longer. Where did my Sawzall blade go to show you guys? Well, here is a hacksaw, which I ended up finishing it off with. After I got this out, then I had to get this part out, and it didn't pop out like you'd think. So what I did was I stuck this in there. I took this blade off and put it on while it was inside here. So it was basically like this, right? And then I started off with a Sawzall, but I finished it with this because I didn't want to go too far. And I slowly finished cutting it, and I cut out a strip here and a strip here, and then I popped this out of it. And then I was able to wedge a screwdriver in here and like crunch it down and pop it out. So that's how I did that. And this new thing, the bushing is two pieces. One side's here and one side's the other one. So you get it in there, you hammer it in on one side, hammer it in on the other side, and then you take this, where I got another one. You take one of these, right, and you hit it in there. You hit it through with a hammer, and it comes out until it comes out the back. Yeah, so that's how you do that. And this side, the problem I had with this side was it was such a pain in the butt. These didn't want to like stay in there. They kept popping out. I ended up somehow getting the other one in there. I damaged one, so I don't have enough to finish it, and there's nothing wrong with this. I'm going to keep it the way it is. So that's how you rebuild one of these. Okay. Now let's talk about the strut. Okay. So you've got this part. Let's go over here. I have it laid out. So that other part, first you got to get the spring off, okay? To get the spring off, you want to use these, and you clamp this in there, and then that clamps on the bottom side, and then you tighten this and tighten it, and you have two of them. You have one for each side, so you get one on this side, one on the other, and you tighten that till the spring is compressed, and then once it's compressed, then you can finish taking it apart. Once it's compressed, then you let's see. I think the first thing you do, you pop off that top, you take that nut off, then there's a washer, and then there's this, which there's a bearing in there. You're going to want to re-grease that bearing. That's the underneath of the bearing. And this is a washer, which is on top of this. And then this came off of this, right? And then there was this. Whoa, these things, right? What is this? This goes inside this rubber thing, and then this is the last thing. So that's how that comes apart. And then you get down to this, and there's a shock in here. So you pull that shock out. Whoa, wait, to get to the shock, let's see. There's this. Okay, so this screws on here. You're going to take this off, And I use 2 pipe wrenches. There's some kind of specialty tool, which I don't have, and I'm sure you guys don't either. So you get a pipe wrench one way, pipe wrench the other, and you unscrew these, you know, lefty loosey. You take it off, and then the next thing you'll pull out is this will be in there. You'll pull this out, and then this will pull out, and it's not in there tight. I think one of them was tight and one of them wasn't. So hopefully you'll get a loose one. If not, I guess jiggle it and put some WD-40 on it, right? So yeah, you pull those out, and then yeah, so that's how you take apart that. Let's see, is there anything I'm forgetting? I think the brakes are somewhat self-explanatory, right? Maybe I could quickly go over that. Let's look at the brakes. Show you what the brakes look like. So when you get off to the brakes, there's special tools to do this, but you can also use pliers. Where's my special tool for it? Anyways, you know, you take these clips off, that pops out. You push this and turn it, and this pops off. Pull that out. Yeah, pretty self-explanatory, the brakes. Don't forget to bleed the brakes when you're done. You bleed the brakes right here. After you put fluid in it, you want to loosen this, and then you have someone pump the brakes while this is loose, and fluid will squirt out. Preferably you have a hose leading into a cup, or it squirts everywhere. And you squirt on. They do that until all the bubbles come out. It's good to have like a hose, a clear hose, so you can see the bubbles coming out. And once it gets clear, then you can slowly tighten this as they're pumping the brakes. And then it's bled on this side. You do that on every side when you're bleeding the brakes. Now, let's talk about the steering. So the steering, like obviously it starts out inside here, right? This goes down. There's a linkage. It's like it has ball joints on it. Let me grab that. I have the old one because I replaced it, and let me show you that really quick. So here's what it looks like. I don't know why I put it back in the package. Here's that. The steering linkage. And you have to pull the gas tank if you want to replace that. And it goes right here, underneath the gas tank. To undo the gas tank, you'll undo these, right? That slides off. You pull this off, and then there's a thing inside here that screws out. And then there was, what else? You undo, you're gonna undo this, and you want to number those. And then on the other side, what was in here? Obviously take out this, and this thing actually pulls out this way from what I remember. Does it? Yeah, this pulls out this way after you get all that stuff undone. But you have to make sure to get this hose off, and this thing that the hose clips on screws. So you get that off, and yeah, undo those. Number everything like me. I get these chalk pins or whatever, and they're really good for that. Undo these. These go to the gas tank under there. And then what's the last? Oh, you want to undo these 2 wires right here, and then underneath you want to undo the gas tank. Where is it? It's like in the chassis somewhere. Hang on, let me get my light so I can show you guys. Where did it go? Right there. You want to undo that, and this hose leads up under there. See, and when you pull this gas tank out, that hose will just like come out, and it'll be attached to the bottom. You'll see it. I'd replace all those hoses if you're pulling this out. So that's how you get to the linkage. Now this linkage comes down, and let's go under there with my trusty light. So the linkage, steering linkage comes down. You can see it coming down right there, and it attaches to the steering box. Now, if you want to replace the steering box or service it, which you shouldn't have to service it unless there's something wrong, it's leaking or something. But it should be like a lifetime thing. You should never have to service it, I don't think. I didn't know that, and I serviced it, but the oil in it was perfectly fine. I replaced it anyway. So to take that off, yeah, you take that linkage piece off, and then you remove this ball joint here, and let me set the light there. You remove this ball joint, this ball joint, and you undo this steering dampener, which if your steering is loose, replace this, super easy. Bolt here, and there, it's like a shock, and the bolt back there. That'll make your steering ride so nice. Yeah, so take that off. After you take those things off, then there's 3 bolts up inside here. Let me get that light. 3 bolts up inside here, and then that steering box comes off. So that's how you take the steering box off. If you're taking the strut off, then make sure to buy 4 of these, one for this side, one for the other side. I think the ones in back are a different size. You might as well get those too, and because these are going to be worn out, so that's a part of the braking system you should definitely replace. And you might even consider replacing these pieces of rubber or the whole thing, which I think was really cheap. I don't remember what it was, 15 bucks or 30 bucks. So I just went ahead and bought new ones. Let's see. Oh, the brake system. If you want to replace the brakes, the master cylinder is right here. So this is the part you'd have to replace. To do that, you undo these 2 things right here. These 2 metal hoses. You undo those, pull those out. There's 2 plugs right here that are dangling. You unplug those, and there's a hose here and a hose here that connects to these. I don't think it matters which is which. So yeah, you unplug those. And then there's, as you can see back here, there's 2 bolts on here, which are on the inside that you take off. Now let's go on the inside to see what you have to do in there to take out the master cylinder. So see those 2 bolts? You want to take those off inside. And then there's this part right here, this clip. There's a clip here, and you pull this clip out, and then this goes this way, and it comes out. And I also rebuilt this here, which was a super pain in the butt. If you do this, you might need a child with small hands. The way you do this is you want to do that brake thing. If you're just rebuilding this, you don't have to take the master cylinder out. You just unbolt, or you unclip that thing I was talking about right here and set that aside. This is connected to the throttle. There's a clip back here. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a clip back there. You can see the throttle cable right here. It I think it was like a hook, and it just like unhooked. And then this is the hardest, the clutch right here. So this goes down inside. Inside here there's a shaft, and there's a hook, and it's like this, and it goes this way. When you press this, there's a hook back here that pulls a cable that's coming from the transmission. So you're gonna have to put this all the way to the ground to get that hook down and get the cable off. And then this will very difficultly pull out. I can't remember. Did I say about these screws? There's a bolt here. There's a bolt here and another bolt on the other side. I don't think you can see it. But basically, there's a bolt back here and a bolt under here. You undo both of those bolts, and it comes out. And here's what I did, what took me a while to figure out. Getting that back in, you're gonna have to go to the other side, to the passenger side, and take off the carpet. And there's an inspection plate right here. And you get a screwdriver probably bigger than this. You pry it open, pry this thing open. And if you look in there, then you can see it. I wonder if I could zoom